Good morning. That's me again. Welcome to my messy space. Meant to be a dining room, but as you can see, it isn't. Right now, we are looking at this Bernina again, and I thought I'd just give you another part of this program. The top of your machine for the bobbin winder repair has to come off. You have 1, 2, 3 screws. Now, I've unscrewed them already. Try not to strip the screws or damage the heads when you take them off, and then you simply remove that. The bane of my life, brown packaging tape and fragile tape, which sticks on these machines, but that's, okay, it'll come off. What do you do with your screws? I would suggest, if you're really worried about it, you put them back into the holes from which they came. The other option is to put them onto a tray which is magnetized. And of course, I have got many options. One of the things that I also do with these machines, with my repairs that is I take a piece of cardboard and I puncture a hole in, and I put all the screws from the machines that I'm working on into those holes, and I write down what they're for. And here's another little thing that I do as well. So there's lots of different options you've got. And this is basically saying, page 6 of the manual, these are the side screws, which are for this machine here. And there are 4 short and 1 long. So that will help you to keep them all in one place. And then, of course, put them all into a bag to keep them safe. So for now, I've just demonstrated, I've put them back into this hole. That you can't always do that depending on where you're working. But for now, those are safe where they are. So let's get back to the bobbin winder repair. This rubber O-ring comes from a very old vintage Toyota sewing machine, which I happened to find in amongst my spares. And it does fit the center. So that's the internal diameter. If you're looking for something, internal diameter. Fits on there very nicely. But that isn't going to be the end of it. You have to check that it fits the external diameter as well. And to do that, this machine engages with this serrated edge on the hand wheel. So there's the hand wheel turning. You can see where the black rubber from the old one has rubbed off onto there. So I'll give that a bit of a clean, but that's where it's got to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to undo these screws here, because these are the screws that I was telling you on the previous video that are to mount the bobbin winder. So we're undoing those. And then this goes into the machine this way up. Just align your screw holes. If you want to temporarily put them back into place, you can, because then at least you know it's not going to move while you're doing your little test run. So I'm all fingers today. Sorry about that. I've got really bad shakes from asthma. Anyway, Michelle, let's try this again. Right, that one is in. Not going to put them all the way in. I'm just going to put them in enough to hold the bobbin winder in its place. Quite frankly, I could do with some much better light in here as well. That would be really helpful. Because then when you can see what you're doing, tend to get it right first time, don't you? So I'm temporarily just putting a couple of screws back in there. So how this engages is that this pushes down. So if I push that down, let's loosen the inner part of the hand wheel. On this machine, you loosen it. A lot of vintage machines work like that. Now, when I engage the bobbin, which in this case has to be pressed down for that rubber ring to touch that inner one, I can see it is spinning. So I know that that ring is actually a good size. So I could go with that Toyota rubber ring, My only concern with using that one is that it is from a vintage machine. Now, the fact that it's vintage isn't always bad, but depending on the conditions it's been kept in or housed in, this machine, this Toyota, wherever it is, it's gone to the scrap. It must have been beyond its best. This ring may perish. And that would be my only concern about using that one. So yesterday I showed you these large ones, which we were going to try today. And if I engage those two onto the ring, I haven't glued them yet. Bear in mind, this one is not thick enough. I'm going to have to glue them together if I'm going to use these. Then this may not work because they're not glued together. They will try and split apart. So this is just really me trying to fudge to see whether they're the right size or not. But I can tell already that if I take this ring, which I know does work, and I place it on there, it's a lot bigger than that. That's not always a terrible thing, as long as when you put the part back in place, it doesn't interfere with anything else. And I can tell you now it's touching something in here. So in here, this ring is touching that spring. So I won't be able to use those because those are just too big. So those can go. Then these arrived today. And these are my second batch of test rings. Now, wrong side, Michelle. That is meant to go on there. And you can see the inside diameter is too big. Could take up some of that space with gluing it on. But is it worth it? I might wait rather for the last batch that's coming and get a slightly smaller inside diameter than this. So for today, I think I'm going to go with this one and glue it in place. So once I've done that and glued it in place, we'll come back and install it. Okay, so I'm back with an update and very exciting news, a product that I've found. So this was these rubber rings. These are gaskets and they were too big. Believe it or not, all I've done is, with this remarkable product, seriously, have you ever seen anything like this? Super glue. But the difference is you get an activator with it. I am going to show you what I did. I'll move my stuff out the way. We don't want to contaminate it with anything. Take your super glue. If you're in the UK, I just got this at the Screwfix, but you can buy it anywhere you like. A few drops of that along one edge of your rubber ring, because remember, these are the ones that I said to you are a bit too thin. So I'm putting two together to make up the bulk. I probably put way too much on because really it is so strong. It's unbelievable. One surface with your super glue. If you don't have the activator, you can do it, but it's going to just take longer to dry. Now take the activator and you spray, sorry about the bouncing, spray the activator on the other surface. And when it's dry, it goes a sort of matte color. Doesn't look like there's anything on there. And I simply plonked the two pieces together, being very careful not to misalign the center. The outside I'm not bothered about because I'm going to cut that off anyway. So there you go. Excuse hubby in the background chatting to the office. Honestly, I did this one first. No, where's the one I did first? It was such a mess. Oh, I can't find it now. That's a bit sad because actually I pressed down on it with the heel of my hand like this and it slipped before I could even fix it and reposition it. it had completely stuck, so it had to go in the bin, that first one. This one is now stuck. That's it, literally. You cannot get these things apart. Look at that. You cannot get that apart. What I did next was, I took this little one from the Toyota. I mentioned to you that I was a bit worried it might be a bit old. I've placed it over the top of these ones. Now bear in mind that the inside diameter is very similar. And I used a pencil, but you can use anything to just mark around your O-ring. And then I've used scissors to cut them. What I've done is, you can use the magnifier if you want, and all I've done is cut chunks off the side. So it's first of all going to be more of a pentagon, hexagon, whatever shape, depending on how many sides you cut. You can do this with a knife as well, so let me show you that as well. So you just cut a section off, keep going around until it's nearly the size you need. Seriously, I am so impressed with that super glue and its activator. Now, I'm going to cut through this cardboard, aren't I? Once you've got most of the excess cut off, you can go around and then cut the points off. At the end of the day, if you're doing any drawings, if you've ever done any drawings, you know that often a circle is made up of just dozens and dozens of little lines. So it appears to be a circle, but it isn't. So you can go around and just neaten it up as much as you want. And then what I do is I just take a piece of sandpaper, which I don't have with me, but I do have this little file. And then if you're really worried about it, just give it a bit of a file until it is a reasonable shape, but it doesn't need it, I promise you. If you've cut it quite nicely with a very sharp knife or even scissors, then I think you're going to be absolutely fine. So there's that one's not as nice because I haven't cut it as neatly. Actually, it's probably not much different to this one that I've done already. So there is my ring, and I'll show you how well it fits. Let's get rid of this rubbish into the bin over there. Move this out of the way, and then I can show you on here. There's the ring, there's the bobbin winder. Fits perfectly over the spindle. There you have it. Now what we're going to do is you take it to the machine, check that it fits, check that the bobbin winds, and I've done that already. All I'm going to have to do now is put a bit of glue on there and activator on there. Wish me luck, guys, because seriously, if I get this wrong first time, I'm not sure how. I might have to use solvent to get it off. So I'm kind of debating which one should I put the solvent on and which one should I put spray on, but I have no idea. So I'm just going to put some super glue onto this little one here. I've got a little light on this thing. It's not helping a huge amount, but let's do it anyway. So a bit of super glue onto the inner edge of the ring, of the gasket. Don't want too much, it's only got to hold it. And I can tell you now, this stuff is super strong, so you do not want too much. I'm going to close that up so I doesn't dry out. And then what I'm going to do is move that out of the way and spray the edge of this. I have a feeling it's gone into the correct place. And now this is the moment of truth. I've got to get it on there instantly correctly, otherwise it's going to be stuck forever in the wrong place. It's not too bad, not too bad. Could do with a tiny bit coming down this way, but it's too late. It's stuck. It is literally stuck on there now. By the way, if this is all a little bit jiggly, I may have to change my setup. I've got a chest-mounted camera device, And I think I move too much when I'm doing this. It might be okay for sewing, but I'm not sure it's going to be okay for anything else. Right, let's have a look. There you go. Not the prettiest, but I promise you it works really, really well. We're now going to go over to the machine. No, let's not go over to the machine yet. Let's find the other parts for the device, for the bobbin winder. We have got that piece. We've got that piece. And there's a spring in here, which is tiny. There it is, at the bottom there. Okay. And if you remember correctly, I put these back into here, the screws. So I'm going to simply unscrew these pieces here. And I know, take the washer off. It's got a tiny little washer. Put that back together. This goes onto here. It's got a little pin there. Sorry, fingers. It's got a little pin there. And the screw hole. So washer onto the screw. And let's get the screw seated, and then I can move my hands out of your way. Right, it's in the hole. Can now screw that in. And it's adjustable, as you can see. It slides backward and forward. I'm just going to put it sort of in the center point for now, as I believe that's where it was. I'm going to tighten that up. Right, it's the one side done. Now we undo the second side. That's the other side of the bobbin winder. This is the top, remember? This is actually where your bobbin goes. So this one doesn't have a washer. We'll set that to one side. Now the difficulty with this one is remembering where the spring goes. And I'm positive it goes on there and hooks on this. I may have to do that off camera because it's really fiddly. That goes in there. Okay, then this goes over the top and sits over here. And I've just got to line the screw hole up. Put the screw in partially because I think I've got to put this spring in first. So there you go, I'm putting the screw back into here. Going to partially tighten it. That might be a better view. Okay, and then the spring goes. Because look, at the moment this is just flopping around, okay? That isn't what you want. So that has got to go onto this little post here to hold this back. Just got to figure out which way around it goes. I will be back with you when I've done that. Okay, I've figured out the spring eventually. It's a bit tricky. Here's how the mechanism works. When you put your bobbin onto here, you press the bobbin down. It's a bit more difficult. Let me disengage it first. You press the bobbin onto the spindle here. That engages this. This little bit here is what causes the bobbin to stop winding when it's full enough. So that'll stop winding, and when it's full enough, that'll deactivate and this will pop up. So watch that again. This goes down and this jumps across. When the bobbin is full enough, this will hit the thread and force this to spring back up. Okay, that's how your bobbin works. Now your winder works. When you take this off, this spring will probably jump off. And to get that spring back on correctly, what's the easiest thing to see on here? It's really hard. Okay, there's the spring. The long arm of the spring comes to here, and the short one comes into this little groove here. So there's the spring. The long arm goes up to here, and the short one over there. So I managed to get it on with a little bit of difficulty, but eventually I'm there. So now the whole mechanism is back together again. We're going to go over to the machine. And we are going to put it into the machine where it belongs. Okay, so this is where it goes. This scoopy bit, this little finger, goes under this post here. Okay, goes under this post. So we pop it under there and place the bobbin winder back where it belongs. It's got two screws, one here, and one screw here. And we fasten those back into position. So there's the one screw. This is really not when you want to drop it. So we're going to try and do this nice and carefully. So it goes back in. You don't want to thread, or what it's called threading, but I mean it's like damaging the screws. I'm going to try and do it this way instead. Pop that in there, go a quarter turn also backwards to seat it, and then screw that back into place. Don't tighten it yet. First get the other one in a little bit more. I'm just going to raise the camera up a bit so that hopefully you can see what's going on here. And tightening up this side. Get that tight. I'm not going to tighten it completely yet because I want to test it first. Right, so that's working. I've got that finger post there. If I put a bobbin on, that should go down and engage, which it is. And when the bobbin is full, it should pop out, which it's doing. I'm going to come to this side, see if that's a little bit easier. Pretend I'm putting a bobbin on here, push it down, it's engaged. That, and then when the thread gets to that position, it'll force the bobbin to deactivate and come undone. So that is now working. What we'll do is test it. If I turn the flywheel, the hand wheel, you can see the bobbin is winding, but the needle position is staying static. If I now disengage that and tighten the hand wheel, my needle will now go back up and down. Right, if we loosen this again and we engage this, the bobbin is winding. You can see the bobbin winding. But if I tighten this, it's going to turn both. So I've got to disengage the bobbin there. So that's how you put that all back together. So now what we can do is take off the screws that we put into the body of the machine for safekeeping. Bear in mind that normally when I would do this, I'd give the machine a thorough clean and oil and service, but I think I've done it already. I'd have to go look in my logbook. But yes, I do believe I have already done that. And that is what you don't want to do, peeps, because you're not concentrating, you're looking at something else, and you drop the needle or the screw into the machine. So I'm going to turn my machine over and give it a shake and see where the screw went. You can hear it in there. Oh, there it falls out. Oh, joys of maintaining sewing machines. There's never a dull moment, I can tell you that much. Okie dokes, there you go. We're going to put the 3 screws back in. Just get them seated. I have a a really nice little electric screwdriver, or battery operated one anyway, that I use for this job as well, whenever I've got a lot of screws. But I've got a bit of a phobia about stripping them, so I tend to tighten them a little first, and then I'll come along with the electric screwdriver. Be very careful, the torque must be really, really low. This one is on 1. I think it's still too much. So put them in there. Be very careful, especially with these, because when you get down below the surface, if the screwdriver bit is across to the one side a little bit, it'll scrape the paint off around the hole. So that's another reason I don't tend to use these too much, but rather go for a little bit of a hand tighten on all of these. That's more than enough. It's got to be tight enough, obviously, that you can lift your machine by its handle. But that's it. So there you go, everybody. One successful bobbin winder repair using the gaskets that I had. You can see you can get a new gasket if you want to. They cost a lot of money. These ones were pennies each, and I will bear that in mind in future until I find exactly the right size O-rings to fit the machines. But that will last for another 20 or 30 years at least, I would imagine, if not more. So she's now ready to get a good clean and get reassembled. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the videos.